All right. This is Live by Heart Today, show 44, Resilient Relationships, featuring Dawn Spiegelberg and Wendy R. Wolf. Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
And wearehistorically.com, conscious human apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today, show number 44. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation. I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, a posture therapist and coherence coach. We're focusing on living agreements. Today's theme, resilient relationships. With me for today's Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, professional transformation facilitator. Welcome, Wendy.
John, I can barely stay in my chair. I'm pretty excited about our topic today. Living agreements is, in this case, I feel like it's all about choice and what choices we make and where we choose to invest. And I'm a big fan of relationships, as you know. And I'm a big fan of resilience, of can we do the kangaroo through all the way through with our relationships? Can we stay with it? Can we bounce?
That's beautiful. I think of living agreements and I imagine a piece of paper that is alive, that is not inert. So that's a different image for me, because for me, if something is living, then it changes based on what's happening around it. So I think of when I was first married and how different things were then, and not just my environment, because we were living in a different place. We didn't own our house, and not because now we have two more people in our house, but because of how we interacted and how I was and how I've grown since then. I'm me, but I have more teleos than I did then.
Sure do.
Yeah.
So funny when we were talking about this and the resilience, I kept seeing the Weebles Wobble, which I don't even know if they still sell them or whatever, but how they were like these egg things weighted so that they could wobble but not fall down. They'd always come back.
Yeah.
Just like when I was little, I haven't seen these either. They had these sand-weighted big balloon things that you like punch them and they'd come back up.
Yeah.
That was so fun. That is a lot like relationship.
and that's the definition of resilience. It comes back. No matter which direction the wind blows or your punch throws, right? It always came back, like those balloons on a thick rubber band, and you punch it. It goes out, but then it comes right back.
Yes.
And resilience is bouncing back. It's coming back to a center, coming back to a way of being.
The world is always like this. It's been markedly so in the last year, but it's always that everything's always changing, and the wind's always changing direction, and the waves are always keep coming. Like that's always how life is. It's just easier to ignore it for this year, I think. And then in the middle of it, we're like little sailboats going through, and we're very fortunate to be in relationship to do it. All our relations and specifically partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I when I think of the seasons changing, the leaves grow on the deciduous trees and then fall every year, but they're not the same leaves every year, right? It's a different leaf.
Right.
And so there is change, and the tree is bigger, and the tree gets more leaves. So even though it's the same cycle, even though we as humans have the same cycles, every year we celebrate a birthday and other holidays. And speaking of holidays, the holiday coming up, the yearly February 14th, that some people absolutely love and others scorn.
Where do you fall on that, Dawn?
You know, I use it as a time to look at my loving relationships and to look at where I'm loving and how I'm loving. And I've had those disappointing years where, you know, I didn't get the card I wanted or the flowers I want, you know, something like that. But I realized for me, it's just a time to reflect. It's a time to reflect on how the value of my relationships and the kind of love that I'm giving and receiving, and what am I expecting. So what about you?
Yeah. So you focus on like all your close relationships, like that's how you think about it. Well, you're a mom, so of course you do.
Yeah.
Is that how you've always done it though? Did you, when you were single or whatever, did you think of it in more romantic partner terms?
Oh, I still think of it in romantic terms, but not to the same degree that I used to. You know, when I was single and not dating anyone, there was always the someday when I'll be able to celebrate this with a romantic partner. What will it be like? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm not attached about holidays. Like I'm fine to celebrate a holiday on a different day or whatever. Um, and anyone who knows me well knows, do not ever get me. I don't really like flowers that have been killed to come to me. Like plants are okay, but I'm not a flower person in general.
I'll remember
And
that.
I'm not a jewelry person in general, and I'm not right, like all those things. And certainly I can't even eat chocolate. So like all that stuff, like Michael knows that if he got me like jewelry, like instead of a engagement ring and stuff, like we got an RV. We
Oh,
toured the
nice.
country, right? Like it's just
Right.
like for the same money, So I don't like those things, and he knows. Oh my gosh, if he got me roses on Valentine's Day, I'd be very not happy. Right? It would be right, not happy. Not only did you get me stupid roses, but you got them on like a day where they cost the most.
Oh, right. Right.
like I don't have those pictures, but it's not like I'm not romantic or I don't love. It's just that I'm not enrolled in the pictures. So for me, I don't know, like I remember decades ago writing out I got this, you know how the kids have these little cute little Valentines they can write to their whole class. I remember getting them and writing them out to my friends and people I loved and sending them like 30 years ago in the mail so that they get a Valentine. I like doing stuff like that. Really, I mean, it shows up because in my work, like I always have, it's my favorite theme. Like people want and need love. We all need it. And I love to do particular, being the love you want stuff in February. So that's like, it's an excuse for me to do my favorite topic.
And this is the Live by Heart Today show. So we don't just live by heart on Valentine's Day.
No.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So all year long, we're talking about love, and we're talking about, like, it's so funny because people might forget that we're talking about love and live by heart because it's nuts and bolts and nuts and bolts. But that's what life takes, is nuts and bolts. And it's so funny because like one of the things I always think about is I'm just like, I'll be in the kitchen, and we're undoing the dishwasher or having a conflict about where the glass goes, or figuring out bookkeeping and taxes. And I'm just like, oh my God, when we were setting off the fire sprinklers, dancing when we got together, like who'd have thought we'd be here Like, it's like life is nuts and bolts. Life is like all this stuff that happens, right? And like, but when we were first together, it was just like, oh, and I wasn't a puppy either. I was just about to turn 30, but like, it was like a cartoon. I mean, the fire extinguishers were going off. And now I'm like, and look at us now. It's not bad, but it's so different.
Yeah. I used to, I haven't done this in a while. I used to say to my husband, what will become of us? Because so many things changed. We got together and we were in New York, and then we moved to Seattle, and we moved to different places in Seattle, and now we're homeowners and, chicken owners. So it's almost like a farm here, sort of, not really, right? And he's got his little
Dogs and
projects.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got dogs and 2 kids. And someone said to me recently, oh, yeah, you've got the white picket fence out front. You can't really see it, but it's there. Right? And what does that really mean? So, yeah, I'll say I'm settled into my relationship. And it wasn't always easy. There were days. I quit. And that was always about cooking. I always quit cooking.
Oh, good for you. I don't know how you do it. 3 meals a day. Oh, yeah.
I'm only responsible for 2 meals a day, and then I make sure there's food because my kids are old enough now and they get their own lunch. Yeah, so I'm working toward it.
I didn't want to feed myself 3 times a day.
Well, not everybody eats 3 times a day, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yay.
yeah.
when
So resilience.
Yes, when you were talking, I was noticing another thing that I really, really appreciate about a long-term relationship is the momentum. And so I might have shared this. It was such a big deal for me a few months ago. I realized that I had whatever with Michael. It wasn't a big deal, but he was mad. He was like really mad. And like, I didn't care. Like I always like really cared, right? And I was just like, he's mad. I have work to do. I'm going on with my life. And like that, like I couldn't do that in a beginning relationship. Like relationships die over, like they trip over like a piece of hair. Just like in the beginning, like I call it the Seinfeld effect. Did you watch Seinfeld at all?
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with the Seinfeld
One of the
effect.
running jokes is that they're always breaking up with people over the stupidest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Just the stupid, well, she like holds her tea like this. Oh, well, you have to break up with her. It's like nobody could.
And he couldn't remember her name, right? So then she just never called back.
It's like there's so many ways to mess it up. And I'm like, now, like we have momentum. And so like stuff happens that I'm just like, that's really bad. Wonder how we're going to figure that out. But we do.
Yeah. And, you talk about momentum, and it's sort of funny because I'll walk around the house and I'll look at something and I'll say, I don't remember if that's mine or his. Oh, yeah. So things become so enmeshed. But also I noticed in the beginning of my relationship, I mentioned this before, but there was a time on a Saturday morning, we would always cook really nice big breakfasts because I was working full time and going to school full time, and he was in martial arts, And there were only 2 eggs in the carton, and we both would have 2 egg omelets. So I looked at these 2 eggs and said, "Oh, there's not enough for me." Right? Like, duh, you can have an egg and he can have an egg. But that's just the mindset that I had. And it's really different now. There's still some currents of, deservingness and havingness. But it was strong then, really strong.
Yeah. So I just looked over another thing that I want to talk about today in long-term relationships is that No, but like I should just like have this like little book called "No One Ever Told Us." I'm just like, nobody told me it'd be like this. And one of the
Right?
things is it's related to resilience. It's burnout. It's like things get too hard, or I'm just sick of something, or I'm sick of him, or he's sick of me, or right. Like there's this like this isn't working anymore, and things just go. And what I
Mm.
didn't know is that just like in our own development, like of course I have to. I'm always being like, oh, you just have to die and let go, and then you can rise to the new thing. It happens in relationships too, like all the time. Like that's why they work. A
Mm.
friend of mine is very hilariously famous for saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, 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 I haven't been married to the same man for 35 years. Oh, thank God, no. He's been like, 10 different people."
I've never heard that. I've never heard
Right?
that.
And it's just like, yeah, it goes to shit. It goes to shit. And I hope that we let it go to shit because things
Mm.
have to die, have cycles. Like this fall becomes winter, becomes spring. Can I let it go? Can I let go and let it go to shit and
Mm.
die the way it was and come back and be like, whoa, this is so great because it's new? Or do I have to hold it in place and let it be like pretending to be great when it's not?
Yeah. Yeah. You're describing um, the letting go, right? And knowing clearly what to let go of. So I'm not letting go of my marriage, right? I'm not choosing that, but I am letting go my need to go to bed later, right? Something like that, because
Right.
my clock is different than his clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm later in the night. That's when I get things done, and he's a
Yeah.
early to rise. So yeah.
Yeah.
hmm What are you willing to surrender? What are you willing to not hold on to so tightly,
Mhm.
and then see what happens?
Right. And just like let it like be like messy and ugly and um disturbing. Like can I just like not try to fluff it up and like let like really be with and feel the owie part. And I mentioned in a couple times ago about like having to go through um letting go of the romance pictures, those deep romantic pictures, and how that was just devastating for me.
Mm.
But there's a way in which practice makes perfect, and like we can just keep practicing, and like it's like I love to say that we learn to walk by falling down, and that I think about that as in our soul development in our own personal life, but in the relationship too, we learn to walk by falling down. So just
Mm.
keep practicing. Oh, look at us, we're meaning to go to the next level of intimacy, but instead we're fighting. Oh, we're needing to go to the next level of intimacy, and instead we're messing up how we do paperwork. It used to work, now it doesn't. Like
hmm
whatever. Like just there's so much messiness, but practice does make perfect. And am I willing to go through the mess?
I just had the image of Mother Teresa
Mm.
living in the streets of Calcutta. Now, I didn't know anything about Calcutta, but I happened to read a little something, about her walking the streets and all of the uncleanness that was there, and her recognizing a single flower,
Mm.
and her still being there for years and years, and living a purpose, right? That's really powerful because it was messy there from what I've read,
Let's see.
right? And people injured and not feeling safe and
Yeah.
sick, and that's a resilient person.
Yeah. Hmm. You remind me of another thing with long-term relationships is it's under another point under the title in my head of like not getting what we signed up for.
Not getting it or not knowing?
Not getting what we signed up for. So like, Michael and I got together and I was so healthy and fit and strong. And I mean, we would play hard and dance hard and bike hard and camp hard. And then I very quickly started breaking because of other things that were going on. I started breaking and getting ill. And it was like you promised this partner and got this partner. And a lot of people don't stay for that. A lot of people move on. And there was this guy, I'm remembering there's this guy who he cut my hair. And he was talking to me because I could relate. And he was saying how his wife had gotten chronic illness, and just he didn't know how he was going to make it because they went hiking and camping and all these things, and now she's got chronic illness and their whole life is not what it was. And he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it. He was going to be on his way out. Like, I could just see it. And whereas, we've been just so blessed, like, can we keep letting it iterate? Okay, so you keep doing that. I'm not. You go out and play. I'm not. Like, we've done so much of that. It was so funny. It was a running joke in Ballard, Sustainable Ballard. It was a running joke that Michael had this partner that he would always talk about, but no one ever saw. Right? And it's like, that's not how he would want it. He loves to take me everywhere. But that's how it was.
Yeah.
And right. And that's an extreme example. And I'm still limited in what I can do relative to how I would like to be. But we've learned to make a lot of accommodations, like to be in an RV out in the wilderness instead of backpacking out or whatever, that kind of thing. So we can both do it. And we start out our hikes together and sometimes finish together, but the whole middle, because he goes like twice as fast as I do. Right. So there's all this stuff, and that's in every relationship. We just have to keep accommodating to what is and loving the person where they are and loving us where we are and doing the new thing. I don't know. What do you say about this? I think it's very, very important.
It is very important. And I'll answer your question when we come back from our break.
Oh, okay.
Love is in the air. Straight from our hearts. Love never ends. Love always starts. Love is unconditional. Can we fathom that? I love you. Infinity is indeed a fact. I love you. Love is a connection to a greater power. Love expands our minds like a living flower. Love perpetuates love.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I instruct an online video course that teaches anyone how to play jazz piano like a pro with my proven step-by-step system that makes it simple to learn. Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Learn the quickest way to start memorizing and playing scales today. Download my free Quick Start Guide.
Welcome back to the Live by Heart Today show. We are talking about resilient relationships. And Wendy asked me a question about relationship and how we keep pace. That's actually a good term. And you can think of it very much like horses running a racetrack, right? And sometimes one is ahead and sometimes another is ahead. And how do we do that and do that with love? And I'll share with you, I've listened to a program that has been recorded by somebody who is a clinical sociopath. Now that's really weird. And one of the reasons it's weird is because he doesn't really have feelings, right?
Mhm.
And one reason I was listening to it, because he was talking about love, because he's married and has children, okay? And he said, love is mistaken as a feeling. And this is coming from the guy who doesn't have feelings, right?
Right.
And he said, love is will. It's a force of will.
Yeah.
And that really helped me see a little differently my marriage. And I think it also helps us to see this question you asked about keeping pace with each other. Your partner was going out and no one had really met you because you couldn't do the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And the unconditional way he stayed committed was beautiful, is beautiful. Yeah. And that's a force of will. And it gets developed because the wind blows and we come back, right? We're resilient. So that's what I think about that. It's hard. I don't know what makes us different. Why are we different that we are in long-term relationships? We live by heart. That's one thing.
I don't know, because I've been in more than one like 6-year relationship.
Mm.
And I did notice it started getting harder, but if they talk about 7 years, I mean, it has been different since 7 years, I have to say. That it's not the same. And I'll tell you, here's a great joyful thing for me personally is because we've been through hell, we've been through a lot, and our relationship's gone up and down and all around. But the other day he blew my mind, Michael. He said, I love you more every day. And I was just like, of course I'm like, what? Right? Right? Yeah. I'm like, you have my full and total attention.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, it's not as gushy. It's not as, we don't have this, we don't have that. Tell me what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, but I love you more deeply every day. He never talks about this, by the way. Never, ever, ever.
Wow.
He never talks. Saying the love word out of his face like once a year or two times a year. He doesn't talk about it. And I was just like, for like weeks, the poor man. For weeks, I'm like, he loves me more. He loves me more.
That's awesome.
Because it was such a shock.
Yeah.
I'm like, because it is a different quality of love. It's probably more, what is it? More oxytocin and less blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, you can do these words better. It's definitely the quality of the love is different, but it goes deeper. And that's another thing they don't tell us. Like, and if they do, I couldn't hear it. It goes deeper.
And when you say you can't hear it, what's also true is if we don't have a frame of reference, then we don't understand it. If we don't have an experience or a flavor of it, then you're right. We don't hear it.
Yeah. So, yeah, and this might sound funny on the other hand, because like we're always joking about these things, and I'm like, he's always saying, Wendy, you should write Hallmark clock cards, and you should write the love songs, because I'm always redoing them because they're so ridiculous. Right.
That's funny.
It's like you would write the funniest songs because the songs and the cards are just absurd. They're disgusting. For me, they're so gross. Like, it's just like, I'm sorry, he's not the center of my world. I'm sorry, like, I don't live and die for you. I'm right. Like, that is just, it's just not healthy. And so, like, I'd be like, oh, I love you. And I like you a lot, most days, not every minute.
Right.
He's like, definitely not every minute. Like, we have these jokes, right? It's like, it's so important to just allow. All right, I always love you. Don't always like you.
Mhm. Yeah. We started making our own cards, right? Because you spend money and it doesn't say exactly what you want it to say, and you spend time looking for it. And one card was so silly, it was I think about you when I think about love. I think about you when I think about, you know, uh, fun. I think about you when I think about being married. And then you open it and it said, I think about you when it's time for the trash to go out too, you know? So, instead of it being so gushy,
Yes.
but it did have a little gush, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
about you,
Aw.
and it's true.
That's
And there's the reality of, am I taking out the trash tonight or are you? It's got to be rolled down to the street. Who's doing it this week? So
right. Yes.
I think the reality of us having resilient relationships is something they don't tell us about.
No.
And we don't have a frame of reference for it necessarily because what's our frame of reference? We grow up with parents and we're constantly asking permission, and then we leave them. And then we're supposed to build a marriage or long-term relationship based on our childhood, right? Our childhood was constantly asking permission. So are you getting in a relationship where you're going to constantly ask your significant other for permission to be who you are and to open the refrigerator and to eat lunch, right? So we just don't have good examples.
Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, some people stay in that I'm not in charge of myself thing.
Yes.
And actually, I believe overly responding to the desires of the partner or perceived desires of the partner, which make real crazy.
Yes.
I'm doing this for you, you're doing this for me, but I don't want it and you don't want it. So like it can get nuts.
Yes.
But
Destructive.
yeah, but I, as usual, my whole thing is all about teleos. It's all about growing up, and it's growing up individually and in the relationship.
Mm.
And that doesn't always look so hearts and flowery.
And we've talked about this. Like, this is the whole show. Keeping your eyes on your own page.
Mm-hmm.
Being neutral and objective, right? Our entire list is about not just us, but also our relationships. So
yes,
resilience in looking toward Valentine's Day, and looking ahead at it. I think for me, my husband has become a little more like a Hallmark type of person. He might get me flowers or something. But it wasn't always that way. And I decided what level of love was important to me. And there's another book too. I just want to mention briefly a book. It's about the languages of love. There's 5 of them. It's time, it's gifts, it's service, it's words of praise, and I always leave one out. At any rate, everybody feels love in a different way. So if, for example, love for you is being with you and time spent, quality time spent, then you're not going to want flowers. You're not going to want a gift, right? The gift is the time.
Yeah.
So understanding, and I got lucky because my husband likes all of those languages, which means I get to rotate through all of them. One day I'll say, "Oh, you did such a good job with this," and another day I'll give him something, right? Like it's fun. Oh, sweet. Touch. The last one, I would forget touch. That's mine.
Because it's so like.
Could you guess?
It's ubiquitous.
Yeah. So as we look toward Valentine's Day, do you have any
Well,
Wonderful words.
our wonderful producer Rusty reminded me the quote, which is like I believe we could probably quote it on every show, which is about it's about survival with the fittest, and it's like it's not how smart we are or fast we are; it's how adaptable.
Oh, yeah.
It's extraordinarily, thank you, Rusty. It's extraordinarily not just about me, but it's about relationships in general. What survives the most adaptable? And I would say a very similar word is resilient.
Well said. Well said. So I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful Valentine's Day. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching today. We want to hear from you. If our conversation spoke to you, please tell us what's on your heart by leaving a comment. For more information about how you can live by heart, please go to livebyhearttoday.com. Please like and follow this page and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our programs. We're here every week on Thursdays at 4:44 Pacific time. It is from our heart to yours that we create a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Shop online at wearehistorically.com. Conscious Human Apparel.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilridge. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Have a happy